Love when you say that.
Yeah, I'm not getting any kind of cautionary signals or anything. So thank you for being here. And as those who are signing in, let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country, what facility. I mean, let us know where you're from. And I've got a great set of guests here today. I'm really excited about my very esteemed panel of nurses by trade. Very esteemed background in nursing and many years of experience, but it's all relevant experience, right? So it's relevant recent experience. One right on the front lines, and then we've got two others who have lots of great input as well. So I think this will be very enjoyable. And let us know again where you're signing in from. If you have any questions throughout our discussions, please feel free. And we're talking about staffing during COVID, which has been quite a challenge. So let me go ahead and stop my music here. Welcome to the show, all of you. And I'm going to start off with my top left-hand corner, which is Ms. Kristian Rolfes. Did I say that right?
We say Rolfes.
Rolfes, thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Kristian Rolfes, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, very glad. And then we have another familiar face here, which is Noelle Kohles. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
Fine as frogs hair.
Fine as frogs. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, very glad to have you. Well, frog's hair, actually. And of course, a frog does not have hair, so I'm very fine. All right. And then we have Dr. Malaska. How are you? Reezena Malaska, welcome to the show.
I am great. I'm excited. Thank you for having me. The one thing I do want to let you know is the last time you had me on your show, which was a few weeks ago, I was in Houston, Texas, and I'm in cold Indiana right now.
Oh, wow. Indiana. I was wondering about where you landed. I remembered you mentioned something like that. Well,
yeah, I drove 1,160 miles from Houston, Texas with my kitty cat.
Oh, wow.
Over 2 days. Yeah.
What's your kitty cat's name?
Lucky Boy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, glad you made it. And one of the things we talked about the last time is that you said you were going to take the vaccine. You were one of the ones that had been chosen. And then we promised we were going to have you back on the show after you had taken it, just to kind of tell us about your experience. So we want to start off with that. And it looks like our chat's working too, which is great. Fantastic. Okay, so we're all waiting in anticipation. What was it like? What was it like taking the vaccine?
So the first one, I don't know if I'd spoken to you after taking the first one, but the first one was December 16th at 1:45 in the afternoon. And I wasn't expecting the side effects that I got from that one. It started about 5 to 6 hours. I started off having chills. And then about at the 7-hour mark, I had this intense headache, backache, general body pain, joint pain. The taste in my mouth was gone. It felt horrible. And it was awful. It was awful. But at the 24-hour mark, the headache was gone. I had the backache was kind of gone. I still had the joint pain, And then at the 36-hour mark, it was like nothing happened. I mean, it was just like, that's it. That's it.
Wow.
But
Okay.
what I did
It's like your body
was,
took immunity at that point.
right. So what I did was I pre-medicated myself because I was a little scared because I have 3 autoimmune disorders. 2 of them are a result of latex damage to my body. So I didn't know how I would respond. However, I've never had a bad reaction from the flu vaccine or any other vaccines I've taken. So I had some confidence with that. So what I did was what we would do, Noelle and Christina, with our patients is you pre-medicate them with Benadryl and Tylenol. I did that the night before. I did the Benadryl in the morning and I did the Tylenol an hour before I went in to get the shot. Once I got there, and I had this in Houston, Texas at Houston Methodist Hospital. There was a physician there who was one of the first ones to get the vaccine. And he advised us to take 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol before we went to bed that night. And lo and behold, he was absolutely right. It worked. Now, since then, I've had the second vaccine yesterday. And I sat there and waited and waited and waited for the side effects to kick in, and they didn't until 5 a.m. this morning.
Oh,
Yeah, so I had it at 3:30 p.m. in Munster, Indiana. And what I did was I took Tylenol before I went in, did not do the Benadryl. And then I went shopping for some food just in case today was horrible. And then I took Tylenol last night. I kept taking it round the clock with Motrin in between. And then at 5 a.m., the side effects started. It was a little headache and general body aches, a little back pain, but no fever, which
okay.
was odd because the first one I had a fever that went away. So I got up at 8 o'clock and I started having a little bit of the chills. And I was like, well, I boasted to everyone I didn't have the chills, and now I did. But it only lasted about half an hour.
Okay.
And then what I've been doing since then is pushing fluids and taking Tylenol and Motrin. However, at 12 noon today, I was feeling awful. And I'm like, how am I going to get through this afternoon? So I thought about it and I said, you know what? I'm going to take 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol. Yeah, I know I'm going to be like working my liver really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, my pain went from a 9 to a 10 to right now, it's about a 2 to a 3.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay.
And
So,
I can tell you that I do not regret taking it.
okay.
If I
Awesome.
could do it with my autoimmune disorders, anybody can do it.
Right. And I think that's also, a contributing factor too, and correct me if I'm wrong, and, compared to the others that have had the vaccine, why you probably had more of a sensitive reaction. I have an autoimmune disease too, and I would expect that as well, to have more side effects than maybe perhaps other people. What have you been hearing, Reezena, with others?
So what is really interesting is when I was at Methodist, we were all comparing ourselves, right? And all us women, for whatever reason, we were having all these side effects.
Interesting.
Autoimmune disorders or not, the
Got it.
guys
Okay.
were like, oh, I was fine except for a sore arm. I'm fine. Well, yeah, I forgot about the sore arm, the site that you get it hurts like hell.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm very curious, because we've been discussing that. Why is it the men don't have the effects, but us women do?
That's interesting that you say that, because my colleagues here that are physicians that got the shot were like, we're fine. And they were all men.
Yeah.
I have not talked to one healthcare professional here that was a female that got the shot. So now I'm curious. We're going to do like our own controlled study here.
Yes, exactly.
I really want to know what makes that different.
And these were like ages across the spectrum, right?
Right.
Young, in between, older like me, that sort of stuff. So I thought it was really, really interesting,
It is interesting.
It
I
is
know
interesting.
one female that has gotten it, and I know a bunch, but as far as somebody that I communicate frequently with, and hers was just the sore arm, so she didn't have any
Good.
other side effects. But I, now that you mention, I'll have to check in with my nurse colleagues that really only keep in touch with over Facebook. So I just saw like the pictures of them getting it, just to find out. Do you mind telling us if you got the Moderna or the Pfizer?
Oh, I got the Pfizer. So I was one of the first 1,000 nurses to get the Pfizer on December 16th. And, the hospital invited me early on, by email. I'm a traveler, so I wasn't expecting them to do that because, we're like, well, we're travelers. But they did. And so everybody thought I was crazy to be the first one to sign up. And my roommate, she's a traveler too. And she goes, Z, I'm going to wait until you get yours and see how you do. And I go, well, gee, thanks. She says, well, if you die, or something bad goes wrong, we'll take care of you. But she wasn't even around. She went home.
Oh, wow.
During the time I got it. But I do recall my cat sitting there looking at me as I was writhing in pain after the first shot. He was sitting there looking at me, all upset. And I guess he was looking over me. And all I remember was I keep getting up to take a drink or something, or take Tylenol or Motrin, you know. This time around, he knew that I wasn't feeling good this morning. So he came and nuzzled up next to me and slept next to me with his body right up against me. So if I moved, he moved, you know.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I want to finally get my point in. It's so funny because earlier I was like doing like this to see if I get a chance to talk.
I saw you.
Oh, I
now
didn't
it's-
see.
Well, but see, the thing is, Rollis, when you're looking at Zoom and you're not looking at live, you're delayed. So I'm actually at both screens up. I see you live doing this, and then I see your other screen. It's a total delay reaction.
Oh, you know
Yeah.
what, Noelle? I didn't see him. I'm so sorry, Rollis.
It's okay.
So totally okay. Hey, look, it's no problem.
It's my job.
No
to keep
problem.
looking.
I have learned over the years. And you know, I didn't want to. You guys had such a great banter between you. I just I can't say something and just disrupt a thought because it was flowing so well. But I wanted to just first of all thank you for all of you being of service, you know, to the healthcare community. And I wanted to shine a light to thank Dr. Reezena Malaska for taking the vaccine, sorry, and giving us this feedback. And you went through all that, even though you had the autoimmune disease and everything. So I just want to show my appreciation with this. That's all I wanted to do. I want to show my appreciation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Right.
And then also we have quite a few that have already kind of jumped in and said hello. At least one or two we want to just recognize. So Joe, I know we have a couple, at least one or two folks that have said something. Is that right?
Yes, actually. So it's myself and PK Shirley, which I'm not sure if that's her name or.
I think it's Cheryl. Looks like
Cheryl.
Cheryl, I think.
Girl.
I
PK
think it
Cheryl.
looks like Shirley.
Is it Shirley, really?
It looks like it, but we could sort
you-
of make this a game right now,
Yeah,
and
well-
she could respond and let us know how we
Yes.
phonetically
Right,
say her
phonetically. Thank you.
name.
Thank you. You read my mind. We want to ask her to please phonetically spell your name. We're glad you're
I'm
here.
reading it as Shirley,
And she's a nurse, too.
and she is a nurse.
Which is awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. Glad you're here. Okay, I have a question for all of you before we get into some more serious staffing stuff. Okay, would you choose to only need 2 hours of sleep a night if it meant you would die 7 years earlier? Would you trade sleep for hours off your life?
No,
No.
I don't function.
What if you could function perfectly off of 2 hours of sleep, but it would take 7 years off your life? Or you could get the normal amount of sleep, and then you would have the
And-
regular amount. Regular amount of
And then
years.
just die whenever.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm cool how I am.
Yeah.
That will
Okay.
surprise me.
Okay. All right. So if you knew it was going to cost you 7 years off your life, you would not want to deprive yourself of sleep, even though you could perform normally.
No, and if you really add COVID and nowadays, like, let's sleep most of our life off. There's nothing to do. If there was a lot to do, then perhaps I would be okay off of 2 hours of sleep. But I can't. No. Mm-mm.
But you've been on Earth a lot longer than just COVID time. We've only been in COVID
How
for
do you
less than a
know?
year.
How do you know? You're just shaving off 7 years. It doesn't say 7 years from tomorrow or 7 years from 90 years from now.
Well, that's true. Okay. What are your thoughts, Dr. Z? What do you think?
So I have functioned on 2 hours of sleep going to work for the night shift and all of the things that I do. And I can tell you that it really catches up with you where, you know, in a week, I just have to go to bed and sleep for 14 to 16 hours, you know, just to catch up. You never really catch up, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm a night nurse, as I've mentioned before. And so being a night nurse, being of the older generation, you know, sleep is an issue for me. But I have to tell you that since I finished my night shift last week, Wednesday morning, and I've kind of been on the day shift, I've had some phenomenal sleep along the way, even even in the hotel room, even at my new digs, you know, my
Good.
rental place. Yeah. And you know, sleep is not overrated, guys. I have to tell you.
I
agree.
agree with you there.
Yeah. In fact, there's a study I read where sleep can the question says it's just kind of tongue in cheek, but it literally can take years off your life if you're not sleeping.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And they also say we're, because I was a night shift, my entire bedside career I was a night shift nurse too. And there is studies out there that say night shift nurses, it does shed years off of your life as well, which is fascinating too, because the amount of nurses that I've known that were well into their 70s, I'm like, that's not shedding life off of us and they're still working. But there is a study out there too that shows that sleep deprivation, especially working night shifts, is equivalent to drinking 4 glasses of wine driving home in the morning.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Oh,
So you do have the risk of getting pulled over for a DUI and being completely sober
so
after working.
can I just share with you that I had 3 hours sleep on December 31st, and I left the morning of January 1, and I had to make 4 unscheduled stops because I kept falling asleep at the wheel just to sleep for 10 minutes
Yep.
at the rest stops. And that, my dear friends, was a wake-up call for me. It was horrendous,
Yeah.
and I kept praying. I prayed the whole way that I wouldn't get into an accident.
It can
No,
be
it's super dangerous. Mythbusters actually did a study, their own thing on that, of comparing sleep deprivation versus drunk driving. And honestly, sleep deprivation was worse. They performed worse. Not that they were condoning, drunk driving, but just to prove the point of how bad it is and how
I
dangerous.
love Mythbusters, man. That's
Right?
fascinating. I love that show. I wish I would have saw that one.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what changes have you seen with the nurse staffing, and how have those changes evolved since COVID has started up until now? And maybe we can start with you, Christina.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was very different, obviously very new to us all. And we didn't know what to expect. Obviously, we anticipated just a really increase in need for nurses. And then much to our surprise, outside of the hot pocket of New York City and parts of California, there was just the need for nurses plummeted. And so that was something that we never anticipated because of no one traveling, decrease in car accidents, decrease in ER visits, and then all of the elective surgeries being canceled. That's all the staff that are incorporated into that, including med-surg nurses, because the surgical floors weren't having as many admissions. So, so that was just a real interesting first couple months into it, and then it started to, COVID started to die down a little bit over the summer, and then peak come the holidays, and now. Just when you think it can't get worse, it really does. This weekend, with the holidays now having passed and starting to see the results of people gathering together, we're seeing more positive cases in nurses, not just being quarantined, but actually being positive and sick themselves, whether it's staff or travelers, and then so you're having less nurses and then an increase in admissions across the board in all of our facilities that we staff. And it's, it had been for a little while ICU and med surg that were the biggest needs, and respiratory therapists, but now we're seeing the ER starting to back up because the units are not discharging people. So there's just not enough beds. So now it's backing up into the ER, where ER is just, getting it from both sides, new people coming in and not getting, not discharging patients. So it's really putting its toll on, in the healthcare industry.
Yeah. How about from your end, on the front end there, Dr. Z?
So, when I went to Houston, Texas, a week before I got there, the unit that I was hired for became 100% COVID. And I walked into what would be a nightmare, right? And the nurses there were so exhausted because they'd been dealing with it without travelers since March. So they welcomed us. My company, I work for RN Network. They furnished a hospital with over 75 nurses, and many of them were in the critical care units, right? What I saw was things tailed off in September. The hospital realized that, the patients that are critically ill, the cardiac patients, the lung transplant patients, the heart transplant patients, the open heart patients, they needed services. And these patients were not coming in. They were not coming to their doctors. They were scared. So by the time they hit the critical care unit, they were super, super sick. So they took my unit and made it not COVID anymore. So the intensity changed, but the busyness didn't, because we still had all these critically ill patients. And there were days when we would go to work. I started July 6th, and by the end of August, September, mid-September, we would go to work and we would look at each other and go, is there ever going to be an end to this? Because it just felt like we were in a nightmare. We were having, even when I left, we were having, we could have clearly 6 to 10 codes a night, right? Some of those codes, like one of my patients coded like 6 times on my shift. And just imagine you've got 2 critically ill patients, who are COVID, what you're left with, and even the non-COVID. What we saw, and I have to be careful in saying this, so I'm going to make a blanket statement. What we were seeing is hospitals around the country, they're looking at their finances. And so they made a conscious decision to not keep us on, okay? But then there are other parts of the country where their staff are leaving, and certainly that was happening in Florida and in Texas. Their own staff are leaving in droves to go travel nursing because the dollar signs, right? So that leaves the units short. And that is why I'm here in Indiana, because they lost a lot of their staff. Even on Monday, they lost 2 more staff who are going travel nursing in other parts. So that's what they're dealing with. So they're losing staff on the one hand. They've got the pandemic has shifted again because we have all of the people that didn't follow the guidance for Thanksgiving and Christmas, that surge happening. By the way, I finished my night shift on Wednesday morning. Wednesday night, my unit was being converted to COVID again.
Oh, wow.
So that's what we're seeing, But there's many, many more things as a traveler that you have to consider when you're going travel nursing. And I will talk about those later in the show. I will let my colleagues, comment on what they need to. It is not that easy. It is not that simple. There's a lot of other considerations that you have to look into. I've experienced it, and I'm very careful with where I take a contract and why. And I do ask those questions. As hard as it may sound, I do ask them.
So you bring up a great point, because before I left my position as a director of nursing and we were looking to bring contracted nursing in, that was a big struggle that we were facing. We went back and forth with a few of our nurses, and 2 of them were actual previous employees that wanted to come back and help. But because we were standing our ground and not offering this ridiculous amount of pay, trying to be in the market with everyone else, because, not every hospital has a lot of money. And I think generally people don't understand that. There's some very rich hospitals and there's some very poor hospitals. And we weren't able to secure those 2 nurses. What I find fascinating, though, when you look at the pandemic and you look at policy, government, things that are out there, it was very easy to, outside of healthcare, to shut things down, to change laws, to do things. The gouging laws should absolutely take place in the healthcare community, because they need to do something equally across the board to make revenue the same when it comes to travel nurses or other nurses coming in, because where one may gain, another one's going to significantly lose. And where's the value in that when you look at the life of patients, the life of nurses, and to leave your own organization? This is just my thought, because money is really good elsewhere. I don't know if I would be able to walk away from my own peers and my patients and say, see ya, I'm going next door for $4,000 more? I don't know. I can't answer that because I'm not in that place.
So Noelle, you brought up a good point there. And what I'm hearing from my friends across the nation, the ones that just left Florida and are leaving Florida, there are some facilities, some organizations in Florida that are blackballing the nurses who have quit to go travel nursing. But when you look at how they're being treated and the lack of pay, the lack of compensation, you can't blame them.
True.
I say to my friend who is actually on her way to this assignment here with me, we're going to be sharing a house. She gets here on Friday night. She was in an organization that said, no, we're not hiring you back. You're out the door. We don't even, and that is a foolish notion because you know what? Nurses are not a dime a dozen, right? The facility I'm at, where I'm at right now, I was shocked at what I was offered. I was offered way more than what I was getting in Houston, Texas. It amazed me. But what this organization looked at was the competition, right? Now, I could have gone to Arizona, Utah, Albuquerque, Maryland, and even New Jersey. I had offers much higher than where I'm at. But there are many things I looked at, right? I looked at the intensity. I looked at what am I going to be dealing with? I looked at, can I carry on, at this pace? The other thing I looked at, and I hate to say this, guys, I looked at culture. How am I going to be treated? Because I'm a brown nurse. Black and brown people, as Rollis knows, he's had higher ups from the nursing industry on his show. We do get flack. We do get treated badly, right? So those things matter to me. It's
How
not
do
just
you look into that? Like, where do you look to know the culture of a hospital?
Right. Well, we have the travel nurse circuit. You hear
I was gonna say it's part of this. It is part of the secret society. I
we're
hear this
learning
from travelers
things
all
here.
around.
Noelle, you said it. That's secret society. Number one. Number two, you ask certain questions when I'm interviewed. What is the culture like? What is your organization like to travel nurses? Do you embrace them? And then my other question would be, why are you needing travel nurses? Because you know that some organizations can't keep nurses, right?
Yeah.
There are several of them in Florida. I have no qualms in saying there are several in Florida that treat nurses like crap.
Yeah.
And they're gonna pay for it. They're gonna pay for it. I've worked in 3 different systems and I've talked to people I've worked in 3 different systems as a traveler. I've talked to people who've worked in them, part-time, full-time, PRN, same stories, okay? So, and that's very, very important because I've been to assignments where I was treated so badly. The great thing about this is you also have to know your company and you have to know your recruiter. If they're going to stand by you and support you through the thick and the thin and believe in you, that matters the most, because I did jump from one company to the current one I'm with because they did not support me when I was bullied so badly at the bedside, starting day one. And I lasted 9 weeks putting up with that bullying.
Yeah. And Christina, you could probably speak to that a little bit more too, just being with stat staff, but I've heard that from nurses, and I've had traveler nurses bounce back to us for the very same questions and criteria that you asked for yourself, Reezena, to make sure it has to be a perfect fit as a traveler. And I understand that. And you're right. You've got culture and you also have age, right? If you come into, if either you or I, who have been a nurse for decades, come into an organization and they look at us, they're like, well, how are they going to help us? There is a stigma out there. And I love that you are looking at it from so many different perspectives, because those that are watching, especially new travelers, they have no idea what to expect. They don't know what to look for. And there's so many questions that they have. And I'm going to literally throw this at Christina that I'm sure that they ask. And what are you seeing, Christina?
Unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to speak to the nurses themselves, being the MSP, which is the main service provider for our facilities. We are just the main point of contact of, getting our facilities the staff they need. So I review all of the profiles of the nurses that are getting that are interested in our contracts, but it's the unit managers that interview them. So I don't get to speak to them personally. But I will say in regards to culture, because I am on the quality assurance side for stat staff. So I do hear about, any of the concerns that come through, whether it's our own staff or the travelers of our partners. RM Network being one of them. They are a great company. And
oh my God,
as a side note, they are, it is very important
fantastic
to be with a company that supports you. And we feel very strongly about that. Being nurse owned and operated, we advocate for our nurses and we communicate to them of, how important that is to have, that support from your agency.
Yeah, I had a rash of, like a run of 3 contracts, 2 in different parts of Florida and 1 in Georgia, where I was treated so badly. It was unbelievable. And then I got this contract in Houston, Texas, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say Houston Methodist rocks.
Awesome.
I was in the CICU and I got floated a lot to the CVICU. They were phenomenal. They never treated us any differently than their own staff, right? And they respected us. They were inclusive. Listen, when you have the group that I worked with throw me a surprise party my last night there, and then give me speeches, who does that for a travel nurse? Nobody does that. And on top of that, I got gifts. I got presents.
We did.
Yeah. So Houston Methodist
Few and far
rocks.
between. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. That's good to know.
And the staff invited me to go back. As a matter of fact, a lot of the staff, and this is where I'm gonna say this. Sorry, Rollis. I'm gonna say this though. The 3 organizations that treated me like crap, I never changed how I do business. I never changed my behavior or my attitude. I was just me. I go in humble. I go in and do my work. Many of the staff I've worked with, regular staff, travelers, and whatever, they used to think that I'm part of the organization. Why do they think that? Because the quality of care I give and how my patients are and the rooms and everything I do, it's like I belong to the organization. Right. So I practice what I preach and what I teach with my students. Right. So my recruiter and I were talking about that yesterday. He said, Z, it's interesting that, and he believes in me, like he really believes in me. And I worked a lot of overtime when I was in Houston, Texas, by the way. He said to me, you never changed how you do things, and yet you got treated so badly in these organizations. So what does that tell you? So you got to believe in your nurse. And you talked about age. A lot of these young ones, they would look at me and go, Z, you put us to shame. You run around this place and you move so quickly. We are half your age and we can't even do that. So what is it? It's the mindset.
Yeah.
It is the mind over matter. Nobody knows the pain I go through from the Hashimoto's disease because it's the mindset, right? I love what I do. I love being there and I love influencing.
Very, very inspiring.
For that.
Yes.
Give it to her.
Very inspiring. Okay, yeah, you get another one for that one for sure. Yeah. Let's give you a very spirited one here, like that
one. She's like,
yeah, it's very good.
When you love what you do, it is easy to perform.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
And it's seen. Everyone around you can see it. You know the nurses that are there for the right reasons. It is apparent to your patients, most importantly, and to the staff that you were there to support. I had the same experience when I was working, travel in med surg, and they would always say the same thing, like, wait, are you staff yet? And I'm like, no, I'm not staff. I'm still a traveler. But you have to go in as a team player. You can't go in, unfortunately, there are travelers out there that give travel nursing a bad reputation. And it's just because they're not, maybe they're just in it for the money and they're not there for, for their patients ultimately.
Christina,
And
I saw a lot of that.
Right.
And it really was heartbreaking because I'm
Yeah.
sitting here thinking, I call myself old. I'm an old lady and I still have the same passion and the same energy and the same excitement when I go to work, especially when the patients recognize it,
Right.
and why are you doing this? Like, we are a dying breed, we really are. It's like, come on, guys, let's do right by our patients and their families, right?
Right.
But I have to say that Houston Methodist, they restored my faith that there are still organizations out there as big as they are that can really treat their staff and travelers well. Because, I was always conscious that I'm not part of the organization. I'm representing, that's another thing. Travel nurses don't realize that you're the front of your agency, and you are representing that agency, and everything you do falls back to that agency. Whether you do it or don't do it, it falls back to the agency.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Where does that come from? Where does that come from, Dr. C? You've got this, you feel that sense of responsibility. I don't think that is as common as it should be. Maybe it's common, but maybe it's not as common as it should be. Where does that come from?
I think that as a child, I always wanted to do my very best. And I think that over the years that I've been bullied, I've been a recipient of bullying since school, primary school, high school, nursing school. I learned, and as an adult, in this world, and I learned how to manage it, and I learned how to reinvent myself, and I learned how to not let that knock me down. I learned how to deal with it. Resiliency, we had that talk on resiliency.
Yeah.
I learned my value, and I've embraced my value. Like I said to you, one of the things, I'm like everybody else, December 31st at midnight, I make all these vows and, I'm going to do this and this. Well, I was so tired. The only thing that I said was, you know what? It hit home. What I had to do for 2021 was to continue being a travel nurse and to continue doing what I'm doing right now with you wonderful people, to influence nursing and healthcare and to change the culture, change the behaviors.
Absolutely.
Because I realize that I've got a voice. I realize that people listen to me. I realize that people are influenced by me. Just in 1 year, when I look back at what I've been doing, and Rollis, meeting you was like a godsend. Every time I think about you, I have this big smile on my face.
Oh my
I
goodness.
don't even have to see
Wow.
your picture. I just think about you, and
True.
you've embraced me, and you've introduced me to all these wonderful ladies. Noelle, this is like the third time fourth time I'm listening to you, and I'm inspired, Rollis, and I say to myself, you know what? I'm just going to continue doing what I do, what I love best, And by the way, part of that is I quit teaching online when I'm done with this current class. I am. Because it's sucking the life out of me. Number one. Number two, I feel like I can do more and better. I feel I have a story to tell. I feel those 2 books that have been waiting in the wings for me to write, now's the time to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have so many people like Noelle and some of the other ladies I met, that want to collaborate with me. John Chapelier, he messaged me today. He's like, hey, I need your input on yada, yada, yada. I have so many more things that I find I'm really, really enjoying.
Love it.
Now, I can tell you that my students are not happy, but I say to them, look, you can reach out to me. I'm always a phone call away. And by the way, even though we had 2 weeks of vacation, off academia, I invited them to reach out to me. You wouldn't believe how many of them called me, texted me, whatever,
wow.
because I made myself available because they need that support. And I wish you would do a show at some point in time about nurses going back to school and how they're affected by the pandemic and the stress they are feeling.
Well, I know somebody who would probably be good at hosting that show. You and Noelle should talk about that.
Got it. I got my
Noelle?
co-host right there, Z.
Yeah,
There you go, Noelle. I think
We're
we
on
would.
it.
I think we would rock that.
That'd be
We
awesome.
would.
So
Done deal.
I want to put a little light back on Christina because she's a new kid on the block today. Because
Welcome.
So Christina, what inspired you to become a nurse? I want to know that. What inspired you?
Yeah, young, I always enjoyed the subjects of science and math, and then it was honestly just it's hard to talk about yourself, but I have a compassionate heart, and I really just deep down and just very nurturing person, and so I've from the time I was serious about considering a career in high school, it had always been nursing, and never really faltered from that. And it's just that nurturing, and compassionate nature that I have that it just pulled me into it. And that's what, clearly Reezena has, and what so many nurses of what, we need more of is being drawn to that profession and seeing the profession as a vocation, and not a career.
Right.
It's not glorious. Every so often you do get recognized and you get a family member or patient that says thank you, but more times than not, you're getting spat at, and but it's the reason why you're in it is what keeps you in it, because you're not there for the glory. You're not, that's not what draws you to it. You're not there for the money. If you're there for to just nurture and take care of patients, whether it's holding their hand as they die or helping them just get through the few days while they're with you. And so it was a tough decision to move away from the bedside. I've been away from the bedside for 3 years now, working as an internal clinical person with stat staff. But this has, been rewarding to be able to support nurses in a different way on the, outside of the facilities. And, it took a couple years, honestly, to feel to find that purpose on this side versus at the bedside. And I, it was, it's not an easy thing. You work so hard to get there.
Right.
Nursing school is not an easy journey, but to sort of walk away from it, it felt like I was walking away from it. And, that wasn't an easy decision, but it's been just the best decision for my family, and finding, new ways to just really give back has been, rewarding.
Christina, I hear you. I am loving being back at the bedside. I've been back at the bedside for 17 months, and those that bullied me and blackballed me out of jobs, they did me a huge favor, because I found ways of continuing to make a difference in the nursing and healthcare world. One of the things that I wanted to share with you all was last year alone, in 8 months, I doubled my connections on LinkedIn. I have over 2,200 connections right now, and it grows every day. And I'm amazed at people reaching out to me, and I keep saying to myself, I must be doing something right. You talk about you don't get thank yous, you don't get recognized. Noelle can appreciate this. As night nurses, we don't. And I saw that over the Christmas holidays. The doctors brought in, lunches and whatnot for the day staff, but the night staff didn't get anything. And we're like, well, what about us? Well, it's the same thing with the family.
Ugly stepchildren. That's what we always call ourselves. Ugly stepchildren.
We just got the leftovers.
Yeah. Unless you go to the NICU, every NICU across the country always has massive feast 24/7. It doesn't matter. Christina Rolfes, I'm totally interrupting you.
Yeah, you are. Go ahead.
I want to touch base on a point though that you had made before about going away from the bedside into the career that you're at now, and really highlight the value in what you're doing now, because what nurses don't have right now at the bedside is that trust and support person that's not there for them. So they can only be there for each other in whether it's a critical care setting, ED, med-surg, so much to where they themselves are all struggling. They need that outlet. And that's really one of the reasons when I stepped away from my role and I went into leadership coaching, for leaders was that specific reason. And I fell apart and I had severe PTSD, anxiety, stress, depression, suicidal thoughts. And no one knew that. And I'm a mother of 4 and I'm as strong as one can be, but we all fall apart. And when you turn around to look, whether you're a leader or bedside nurse, there was nobody there. And the only thing that people saw was that I was a problem. And because I started showing that I was not okay and ended up in the emergency room.
Yep.
And my problem became everybody else's problem. So you're people in your position and that are on the outside. And I do look at a lot of travelers who've got great recruiters and somebody that sticks with them. That really does make or break that nurse because they're that outlet. They're that person that reaches out to them. So I love what you're doing, and nurses need, you're like the bartender, right?
Yes.
Everyone goes to the bar to vent. Every nurse needs a bartender.
The hairdresser.
Or the hairdresser, yes.
Noelle.
They all need that.
Noelle, we need to do a show on falling apart and what you just talked about. Yes, I would love to share my story too.
So in other words, what you're saying is we need to have a series.
About falling apart, depression, and the whole. Yes, ma'am.
Right on. So, Ross, you'll have to be the my what do you call it? Producer for that one. I can handle too.
Nice. Sounds good. So, Joe, I know that we may have 1 or 2 comments since then. I know you had a couple of things. Can you go ahead and share those?
Yes. So it's actually my comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So earlier I just said, I think that the conversation was flowing very well. And then whenever you guys or Dr. Z was talking about how important it is to get some good sleep, and I just commented how I love my sleep, so I actually make sure I get 8 to 10 hours. And 10 sounds like a lot, but for me, I cannot function if I don't get at least 8 hours of sleep. So,
oh, you lucky girl!
I know, right?
Wow, that's cool.
I have to sleep 7. I cannot sleep more than 7 hours, or I will get migraines. Unless I'm sick, I can't do it.
Oh wow.
My sweet spot is 7 hours. It can't be 6.5 hours, and it can't be 7.5. I definitely do not function at all nowadays. If less than 5 hours. Actually, I'm functioning pretty well today. I've been up since 2:30. So never mind. Yeah.
So would you like? I want to do a fun question. Oh, Joe, you're about to say something else?
Oh yeah, I just had another comment because I was kind of going about what Dr. Z said about how the night nurses, and I actually have a close friend who is a night nurse, and she's in she's a respiratory therapist and she works the night shift, and I actually saw her from far away, not far away, but 6 feet apart, about a month ago, and I hadn't seen her in 2 years, and we're the same age, and she looked so much older than when I remember her looking. And she's been a night nurse for 4 years now.
Thanks,
so
Joe.
I definitely told
well, Joe, how do you think I look for being a night nurse? and having pain from COVID.
We think you look great.
Sleep makes a difference.
Look amazing. Yes.
Yeah, I did.
But Reezena, that goes back to what you're saying. Sleep makes the difference.
Yes.
You need to take. I was always very structured at night, and I always found night to be better as a mom because you're up all night. You sleep when you can during the daytime, and you see your kids when you can. But you have got to be disciplined. Yes. If you are not disciplined with your diet, with hydration, with your sleep, you may look as old as your friend did, Joe, because it's really all how you take care of yourself.
Okay, I want you to pretend I'm a nurse for a second, and I'm thinking about these offers I'm getting, these recruiters that are calling me to go to different places to do travel nursing, but I'm working at a facility. I'm reasonably happy where I'm at. What should I be thinking about if I'm considering these other places that are giving me these calls left and right about going places? What advice would you give someone in that position?
Who should go first?
I think you should go first from your perspective.
Okay. So what I look at is what the unit is like. Why are they hiring? Is it because of lack of staff or they can't keep staff? Usually when you go through the interview, you hear things, you know, I'm savvy enough to pick up on certain things, right? What is the expectations in terms of floating? Are you going to float a critical care nurse to med surge? I mean, you know, there was one facility in Florida that did that to me, or was trying to do that to me. They also refused to give me the proper PPEs when they were floating me there. And because I refused to go, they terminated my contract. Yet they didn't find it hard to give the proper PPEs to their own staff. So what makes me expendable and me being put more at risk, you know? So you, in COVID times, you're going to ask about PPEs. Do you have enough PPEs? You know, what is your policy on floating? What is your cancellation policy? I don't typically look at anything over 36 hours because if I can get guaranteed 36 hours, anything else is bonus. I do let them know that I'm open to working overtime. I do let them know that I am open to last minute changes, which, you know, in Houston, they knew that, man, they'd call me and I would be the first one to switch my shift to meet the needs of the hospital. I did work one set where I worked 5 in a row. It was like, it turned out to be 63 hours. They called me to work a 6th one and I couldn't because I was so exhausted.
Yes,
you know,
yes. No,
so you have to look at those things. You got to look, you know, I'm divorced. I don't have anybody. I don't have a life other than writing and teaching online, you know, so I can do that. With somebody with a family or whatever, it would be a different story. But definitely the floating, how are you going to be treated? Oh, and orientation. How long do you get and
Yes,
what
that's a
type of
big one.
orientation is
Okay.
really, really important.
What about you, Noelle?
And
What advice?
the money is not to, you know, I mean, you're going to look at that, but that is not my
Yeah, I
my
noticed you didn't
main
even say
focus.
money. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say, Noelle?
You know, and I would actually echo a lot of your sentiments, Reezena, with, you know, I interview and I've had multiple travelers come back and I've brought on travelers as full-time staff for all of those very same reasons that you have mentioned. And if I find a good traveler, I actually have my staff interview that traveler. It threw some people off at first and I said, wow, you're working with them. They will be a part of us. And you have to treat your travelers as you would your per diems, your part-times, your full-times. An employee is an employee is an employee, and they all deserve to be treated the exact same. And that's something too that when I interview travelers, they pick up on as well, is you're treated as part of the family. And another thing too that I've noticed travelers ask is about their assignments. So when we needed a lot of travelers, I was bringing on new grads. I needed travelers to hit their ground running. So my question to Reezena would be, if you came in tomorrow, can you take a patient crashing on ECMO? Because that's what I'm going to need you for. And it would throw them off, but I need my core experienced nurses to be orienting my new grads. And you have to have that diversity. And more travelers came back to us because they were actually utilizing their skills the way they should be.
Very
Absolutely.
good. How about you, Christina? What advice would you give to someone considering this? Staying where they are, or
I mean, something that Noelle touched on earlier is, you know, staff leaving their own facility during a time like this. Like, I don't know how I would be, if I would be able to do that either and speak to that. That would be difficult. But, you know, it would just, you know, I guess that would tell you, you know, the type of culture and environment they're in. You know, if it's
Right.
you feel like it's your family, likely you're not going to leave them, even if it's just for more money. But it's just finding the pros and cons of going into it and just the reasons and making sure, you know, as I mentioned before, you're going into it for the right reasons. If you're going into travel nursing for the money, like it's a tough road, and it's not, the money's not going to be enough to take you through it. Because, you know, even if you ask all the right questions, there's no telling you're not going to have a few rough, some rough days of, whether it's just transitioning into a new environment, because you're expected to hit the ground running. They're paying a lot of money to have you there. You get 1-2 days of orientation, and you're expected to know everything you need to know to do your job. Nursing is the same everywhere, so it's not too hard to do that as long as you have enough of a background in the electronic charting to be able to just jump into a new one. Everything else kind of comes with it, but it's just if you're a team player and you're whoever you're leaving behind is going to be okay as far as your unit, and making sure you have someone to come back to when you are out of that travel world, to not burning bridges, because nursing is a small world. Travel nursing is even smaller. And so, and people talk. So it's just making sure you're in that for the right reasons, just to maintain your own reputation. And in the end, if you're in it to take care, just try and feel like you need to help. I mean, our healthcare is in a serious crisis right now. And so if you're going to feel like you need to make a difference in helping your fellow staff or helping patients in the end, then you're going into it for the right reasons, and you will succeed, because you're not going in with the mindset of I just need to make more money and maximize.
So one of the things that I've noticed, and I did it myself, is I see a lot of travel nurses traveling together. And when I got this job here,
that's huge.
Yeah, when I got this job here, I learned that one girl who actually put me on RN Network, she's been with them many years. We met in Southern Georgia more than a year ago. Last year, October would have been a year ago. And I knew she was looking for a decent assignment because she was stuck in this horrible place in Florida. And she's actually driving right now with her boyfriend on the way here. So I got her into this facility because I mentioned her to the director, and him and I hit it off like the first day he interviewed me. A 50-minute interview turned out to be 50 minutes. And he ended up interviewing her and hiring her. So we're traveling together. She's coming a week later, finishing a week later. And I'm telling you that's where we will be supporting each other.
Yes.
And she's older as well, the resiliency and everything.
That's
we're sharing
awesome.
the same place. So I see a lot of that happening, Rollis. It's making it easier and more palatable for us.
Sounds like
such a great point.
Yeah,
you got to make sure you have the, the right, my mind just totally went blank, but support system, whether it's a fellow traveler or finding, teaming up with the travelers or even staff of the facility you go to. But, just finding it, making sure you have a support system, because, nursing right now is incredibly difficult, and you need to have a safe outlet to take care of yourself. You're, mentally, spiritually, and outside of sleep and eating, you have to make sure you have that support. So that's a really good point.
Well, I can tell you that RN Network checks in with me, my recruiter, every so often, and he'll text me, he'll call me, or if I call him, he's ready to talk to me. Always returns my call if he's not there. And they are such a supportive.
That's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. They check in on you, like not just my recruiter, but other people. They're like, hey, Z, how are you?
Amazing.
Yeah. When they learned that I got the first COVID vaccine, I had the person that does the credentialing, texting me, are you okay? We heard you got it, yada, yada, yada. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think too that what's kind of cool is the company that Christina works for, because I've met Dave, who's also a nurse. They're constantly in touch with the facilities, making sure they're interacting with them, making sure things are going smoothly there. And then they're partnering with organizations like RN Network. So if they have a good partner like RN Network that's taking care of the nurses, and then they're able to have those kind of good conversations with the clients, the hospitals.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're doing the right thing. It makes a win-win, a good experience for everybody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you said it well, Rels, because it just speaks to the fact that we know stat staff well and how awesome you guys are. And with Z talking about her travel company, no wonder that you guys are affiliated with each other, because it's the best meets the best. So of course, like-minded organizations and people will stick together.
I have a very serious question for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
What's your favorite breakfast?
Oh,
See, I threw you off, didn't I?
Bacon. That's it.
Just bacon by itself? Really?
Yeah, I'm not a breakfast person.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a breakfast person either, but I love my coffee. I got just a little plug. I got a Nespresso machine last year, and I've never enjoyed coffee more.
Oh, wow.
And now I can just use one cup. That's what I allow myself.
I don't
but
drink
it is,
coffee.
it's a little bit stronger,
Yes.
and I just thoroughly enjoy that. But yes, I'm bacon. I love, meat and eggs, but obviously I don't do that on weekdays. But
I bought
bacon potato.
my wife and I went to go look for a new coffee maker, and I had the privilege of I wanted to do it. I got her the Nespresso, so she loves it.
it's
And
so good.
what's your favorite one so far? Do you have a favorite flavor yet on your Nespresso?
Yep. I stick with the I don't know if I'm saying them right, but the Stormio and the Malazio are my two
Okay.
favorites.
I'm going to make sure
I would be in the emergency room with SVT if I had an espresso or any type of caffeinated beverage.
It's
This
the
is-
coffee is the ones I get. I get the
same
Got
for
it.
me.
Okay.
So it's coffee. I
Yeah.
don't do the espresso
Oh.
ones.
Yeah, Joe does the
but-
same way. She does the coffee.
so
Yeah.
so I'm not a breakfast person either, but when I work a night shift, if I don't have time to eat at night, I come home and I'm ravenous. And for me,
Yes.
it is like eggs and toast, or with some sausage, or
Yes.
or
You put jelly on your
waffles,
toast?
or
No.
You put jelly on your toast?
yes.
What kind of jelly?
I like the cherries and strawberries
Oh, look at
and
you.
grape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grape's my
What about
favorite.
you, Rollis?
Give me the grape. I'll take the grape jelly. But if you're asking about my favorite breakfast, it's got to be pancakes and eggs and bacon. And I like
Yeah.
scrambled eggs, put a little cheese in it, a little hot sauce. And when I'm waking up in the morning, sometimes I don't even want to get up. If my wife's cooking bacon and I smell that bacon, I got to get up.
Gotta get up.
That's how
my
I get-
ultimate favorite breakfast.
Yeah,
is
that
a
is
breakfast
exactly
sandwich.
how I get my husband and children out of bed, by cooking bacon at like 7 a.m.
What were you saying, Christina? That's funny.
Breakfast sandwiches were always my favorite.
Ah.
I grew up on Long Island, and a Long Island breakfast sandwich is like no other. So bacon, egg, and cheese on a Kaiser roll.
Oh,
Have your
wow.
ketchup.
Nice.
That was us.
Always
Taylor
good.
ham, egg, and cheese.
And I see Joe says her favorite breakfast is. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it. So my favorite breakfast is I have found these almond flour tortillas at Whole Foods that are amazing.
Oh,
They're so, so good. And like, I don't say that lightly because I am Mexican. So I know what real
Are they, if it's almond flour, they might be gluten-free. Can you check and let me know? Because that sounds amazing.
They are.
They're gluten-free?
Yeah.
where did you say? Whole Foods?
At Whole Foods.
Oh, I'm going to have to check that out.
Otherwise known as Whole Paycheck. I don't know if it's goes by either name.
It's worth it.
Oh, and then also, so I also get my chorizo from Whole Foods because it is the best and it's not expensive.
Love chorizo.
So it's called Siete. That's the company.
Oh yeah, my wife gets that. Yeah. Those are
That's
good.
good.
Yeah.
Those are amazing. And so it's just like a traditional Mexican breakfast. It's super simple, just the chorizo and the egg scrambled together, and you put it on the tortilla, and it is
So you just like totally sold me, because not eating a breakfast person, I love Denny's. Well, before COVID, I would go to Denny's over like a 5-star breakfast restaurant, right? Because they have a Santa Fe skillet, and in that has the chorizo with the eggs fried like on top of it.
Oh, wow.
And that's exactly what I would do. It is so tasty. So
Nice.
tasty.
Okay, well, anybody who's watching, put in your favorite breakfast. We'd love to know. I'll be watching the comments later. We went way over time, but it was so fun. Thank you, all three of you ladies. You were wonderful, and Joe as well. Thank you for helping us, Joe, in the background. And,
Always a great time, Rollis. Always. So, Noelle, we have to do this again.
Yes, we're gonna have our own series. I'm telling you, I'll message you after this.
Yeah, message me, please.
and
Yeah,
you can't
'cause
see
I
Jonathan. Jonathan's helping me too back there. So
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm
Don't
also.
have
Yeah,
done.
thank you. Christina, so
Very
awesome
nice to meet you, Dr. Z.
Yeah,
Very
I would
nice. And
love-
thank you. Thank you
Rollis,
for
I
your
would
service as a
of
nurse and a
course.
traveler. I appreciate it.
Of course. Rollis, you should have us three ladies back again.
Yes, we will work on that. And this is for
No
all of
pressure.
you right here. See, this is for all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys have been amazing. Everyone in the comments, you've been amazing too. Thank you for participating. And again, please participate in the replay. If you're watching this later, which many of you are, because I know maybe some of you were working when we had this going on. So feel free to look at it later. We appreciate all that you do, and we'll see you soon. Any parting words you want to say bye to everyone?
Well, I just want to say that I'm so grateful that I feel protected, having the two COVID vaccines.
Awesome.
And, without any negative issues. And so I would just say, encourage
Vaccine.
everybody, go out there and get it. Okay. If you can.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's do a quick pose for the cameras. All right. Very good. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of the day. I've had a great time today. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks,
Very
everybody.
much. Take care.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.